Hi everyone, it's me, Tanisha, Cree girl Tanisha. I just wanted to talk to y'all. I had like the longest week ever at work, and it's Friday today, and I feel so happy that it's Friday. I just had a really long week of doing stuff for work, and I really like my job. What I do as a job, I'm not gonna go into the full detail of like my whole position and where I work and stuff, but like basically what I do is I help indigenous people with going to university. It's a really rewarding job, and I really like it because I went to university. If you didn't know, one time this girl in the comments called me like dumb or something because I swear a lot, but you know what, just because I swear a lot, I'm still educated. I went to university. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in Native Studies. I had to move down to the city from the res to come to university, but I did live in the city like a few times. It wasn't like my first time living in the city when I moved down here. I just wanted to talk a little bit about moving to the city from the res to go to school, because that was really freaking hard, and like how it makes me so happy to be doing my job. I guess I'll start with when I went to university. I graduated high school in 2015 in the res. I went to high school in the res all 4 years, grade 9 to grade 12. Oh yeah, and then when I was in high school, I wanted to do like hair. I wanted to be a hairstylist. I was actually in like cosmetology classes for all of high school, and I was getting ready to go to like actual school after high school to do hair. I was even like doing all my hours and whatever in high school. You know, I don't know what it's called, like accredited hours or something that you need to become a hairstylist. I was already starting that. But once I got to grade 12, I took one Native Studies course. I never took Native Studies all throughout high school. I don't know why. I guess I just thought like I'm already Native, what the heck? What do I need to learn to be more Native? But I ended up taking a Native Studies course. My teacher, he started talking about like missing and murdered Indigenous women, and then we also talked about intergenerational trauma, and I found that really interesting because growing up all my life, I always thought living in the res, it's very different. Like there's a bunch of different issues that you wouldn't typically find in like a small non-indigenous town, or well, sometimes in the city too. I guess you would see some of those issues, but in the reserve there's like different, it's like a whole different type of environment. Like it's very nice there, but there's also social issues like unemployment. I hate to say it, but like there's like addiction issues and like alcoholism and things like that. Just to be frank, people in the reserve do drink excessively. Not everyone. There are sober people in the reserve, but like there are also people who drink a lot in the res. And I'm not talking bad about natives, okay? I love native people. I'm not talking bad about people who drink, but it does happen more in the res, and it's more common and more normalized. And then there's like dysfunction in a lot of families in the res. And like I really noticed that my whole life. Like I'm like, why is it like that here? But it's not really like that in non-indigenous towns. There's a lot of other things too. Like a lot of youth in the res are like have depression and anxiety and are suicidal and things like that. And like I always wondered, like, why is it like this in the reserves and it's not like this in non-indigenous towns? And then my teacher taught me about intergenerational trauma, and I was like, I did not know this was a thing. I did not realize that intergenerational trauma was a thing. Like this explains everything. This explains why it is the way it is in the res. Like what the heck, I did not know this. I was in my 4th year of high school, like I was about to graduate, and I just learned about intergenerational trauma for like the first time ever. Everything was making sense to me. I'm like, wow, this is why it is the way it is in the res, and this totally makes sense to me, and I want to learn more about like history and why things are the way that they are. And like intergenerational trauma is basically generations and generations and generations and generations of our grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. They all attended residential school, and that's a place where they learned a lot of like dysfunction. They weren't treated very good. So in turn, like that's all they really knew. Like they were taken away from their own families at such a young age. At like 6 years old, 5 years old, you're still really small when you're 6 and 5 years old and you don't know basically anything. That's still a baby. My son is 4 years old and he's almost 5, and he doesn't know a lot about the world. He doesn't even know how to act. He's a baby. You go from being like 5 years old all the way till you're an adult, living in such a dysfunctional, abusive, unhealthy, hostile, unsafe environment with people who are really mean and cold. And then you come out as an adult and then you have kids and you know nothing but that scary environment. And how are you supposed to parent when that's all you know? You don't know how to be nurturing because you were never nurtured as a child. So like that's kind of what made me realize, like, wow, we have like generations of people who were never nurtured as children, so they don't really know how to nurture their children, and they don't know how to raise a functional family because they weren't raised in a functional family themselves for like generations. And then that made a lot of sense to me. I was like, wow, this makes sense. Like, this is why our whole community is like this, like, because it's not just one family that went through it. It was generations of our whole community who went through it. And that's why, like, there's so much dysfunction in the communities. That just made a lot of sense to me. That was really a realization of why stuff is the way it is for Indigenous people. Anyways, I decided I wanted to go to university to learn more about that. Like 3 months was not enough. So I was like, I'm gonna go to university because I want to learn more about intergenerational trauma, and I also want to learn more about Indigenous history. So I applied to different universities. I got into 2 universities. I got into the community college in my community, and I also got into like a bigger university, but I didn't go there because I was only 17 and like I wasn't ready to live on my own. And like it's really hard to move from the reserve into a city, especially at such a young age, because it's a big culture shock going from like a really small town into a really big city, and you don't know how to drive in the city. Like you're not used to being around so many people. Well, so many people that you don't know. So my mom and my band, like my band, like not my band like playing drums and shit, like my band for my reserve band, they said that you have to stay in the community and go to the community university for 1 year before you go to the bigger university out in the city. And then like I was fine with that because I wanted to learn how to be in university first, and it would be easier to do that like while living with my mom and living with my family. So like I wouldn't have to worry about paying bills and like learning how to take the bus or drive in the city and learning to adjust to being around a bunch of new people. Like I wanted to do my first year around people I know, so I have like a good support network. So I decided to go to university in my reserve for 1 year. Oh, the first year was good. Like it was fine. I made it through, learned how to write university level papers, learned how to do proper research and shit like that. And then my second year came around and I was drinking a lot. I don't know, I was having like a party girl phase, okay? I was like 18 years old, turning 19. I had no kids, and I don't know, I was drinking a lot. And I ended up like dropping all my classes because like I drank too much and I couldn't keep up, and like I would always skip class. I just I couldn't do it. I couldn't balance the party life and the school life. So I fucking dropped out of school. I didn't drop out of school. I just dropped all my courses and took a break, I guess. I was still enrolled in university. I just dropped all my courses. I was at a party one time. Like it was morning. We drank until the morning, and I was like, I have class right now, guys. Like I'm supposed to be in class right now, and I'm at a party. This one guy, he's like, why aren't you in school? Why are you trying to live this life drinking and shit when you're in university? You're already far in university, and quit messing around. So I was like, you're right. So I went to see my education counselor, and I was like, hi, I fucked up. I dropped all my courses and I want to go back to school if that's possible. I know I really messed up And you know what? I didn't tell my mom that I dropped all my courses because she would have been really mad. And she was really mad. She was like, I don't think I even told her until I established with my education counselor that I was able to go back. And then I told her. And I was like, you know what, Mom? It's fine. Like, I get to go in next term. Don't freak out. Lucky I had that backup plan because she was still mad. Even though I was able to go back, she was still mad at me for doing that. She was like,
oh my god, I knew it. I knew it. You were drinking way too much because how could you be doing good in school when you're messing around so much?
and I was like, you're right, Mom. That's what's up. I got to go back for the next term, and then I applied to the other university in the city because I got back in school, and then I got pregnant. I got pregnant with my baby. I decided I was gonna keep my baby and I was gonna go to school. I got pregnant around like May in 2017, and then I was gonna go to school in that upcoming September. When I found out I was going to go to school, I didn't know I was pregnant. I found out after, and I was like, I still gotta go to school even though I'm pregnant. Like, I gotta. So I decided I was gonna go to school and I was gonna move to the city and I was gonna be pregnant and I was gonna take my baby daddy with me. So that's what I did. Like, at the end of the summer, me and my kid's dad moved to the city, and I went to school at the university, the big university, and I wasn't showing when I first got there. I was a little bit, but not very much. Like, you couldn't tell. But of course, I got bigger and bigger as I went on in my year of school. Yeah, like, I was just walking around school with a big belly, going to all my classes. And then guess what? My baby daddy left me. he he ditched me. I think we got in a fight or something. He ignored me and I was like, what the fuck? Like, days went by that he was ignoring me, and then like he just wasn't answering my phone calls. He wasn't answering my text. I think he blocked me on Facebook, and like, it was my first year of university. I was also going through culture shock. Like, you know, I was in my first year. I was pregnant, big belly. I felt really different from the people there, like especially the non-indigenous people. Like, I felt really resi. Like, I wore sweatpants. I wore a lot of black. I dressed really basic. I wore big hoop earrings. I still do all of these things, but now I'm just proud of it. But before, I just felt really different and like I didn't like it. Like, I had no friends. I was really shy because I was scared. Like, I've never been in an environment with so many non-indigenous people and so many people that I didn't know. So like, I didn't talk to anyone. Yeah, like, my kid's dad, he ignored me. Days turned into weeks, not answering my calls. I was alone in my place. I was scared. I never lived alone before. It was quiet all the time. Like, I'm used to living with all my sisters and my mom and dad, and then I went to living by myself. And on top of that, being heartbroken because my kid's dad just like took off on me and was totally ignoring me, like ghosted me. So that was really hard. Eventually, like after maybe a month or two, he answered my phone call and I was like, what are you doing? Like, why did you do this to me? I was obviously crying. I can talk about it now because I'm healed now. Back then, I was really weak. I shouldn't say weak. I wasn't really weak. I was obviously strong because I made it through that on my own. But I was really vulnerable is the word. I was pregnant and I was in my first year of living out of my community and adjusting to going to university with like much higher standards than the community university I was going to. And yeah, it was really scary. Honestly, it was a little bit traumatizing, but I made it through it. Like I said, like, my baby daddy, he never stopped acting like that, to be honest. But that is not my problem anymore, okay? I'm independent now. But yeah, anyways, eventually time went on. I had my baby. I was still like really hurt from what my kid's dad did to me, but I didn't really care too much after I had my baby. It was probably a mix of like going through the trauma of leaving my community and also having hormones, that it was so traumatizing. But after I had my baby, like, I felt fine. I felt stronger. And I was like, you know what? Like, I don't need to keep putting up with this. After I had my first son, I stayed in our house for a little while. And then I moved back the following fall to go to school again. After I had my son and I went back to school at the big university, I felt a lot more confident in myself. Like, I was like, I know I can stay out here by myself because I already did it once. I can do it again. Plus, I have my son, so like, I'm not alone anymore. We're a family. Me and my baby, we're a family. Yeah, my baby daddy, he really hurt me and put me through trauma in my first year of university. But I'm stronger now and I can do this in my second year, and I have my son with me, so I can definitely do it. So I just kept doing that. Like, I kept going on until I graduated. I guess that's how it went. It was super duper hard and traumatizing for me to adjust to the city, but like, I definitely stayed strong. Part of the reason that I stayed strong was because I didn't want to have to go home to the res. I liked the idea of having my own space and living on my own with my sons. And if I would have dropped out of school, I would have had to move to the res, and then like, there goes my chance of having my own home, you know? I would have had to move in with my mom and raise my son in a room. We wouldn't have had our own space. We would have had to live in a bedroom. Basically, that would be our own little area. And I didn't want that for myself or my son. So like, I kept that in the back of my mind the whole time. Like, I was like, you know what, if I want to not have to live with my mom and live in a crowded house with all my siblings and my parents and my son, then I'm gonna have to stick this shit out and stay the fuck in school so I can get a job and pay rent in my own place. So I had that in the back of my mind the whole time I was going to university, which honestly, that is honestly what kept me going the whole time, because I did not want to live in my crowded house with my kids. Not down. I wanted my kids to have their own room, and I wanted to have my own room, and I wanted to have my own living room and kitchen and bathroom and everything. I stayed in school and I was like, I'm not going home. Absolutely fucking not. Yeah, now I work at a university, and like, having gone through all of that stuff just to stay in university, there was a lot of other challenges too that came with being in university. Don't get me wrong, it was very fucking super duper stressful. All the papers, all the exams. I didn't have a social life. I always took care of my kids and I went to school, and that's it. But it was worth it. And having known that, how hard it was, I feel like that definitely helps me with helping indigenous students who are getting ready to make that journey. And I don't know, you know, like, I understand that it's super duper hard. I can relate, and I know that like, you're about to do a really huge challenge, but it's very beneficial for your future. I just love it. I love my job. I love that I get to help indigenous students who are going through the same thing. That was my little story time of adjusting to university and the beginning of my education journey. But there's a lot of small stories that went on in between that. Maybe I'll talk about those later, but I gotta go. Bye.